In the early hours of January 9th, 2018, a powerful storm front approached Montecito. Most residents were sound asleep, exhausted from a traumatic holiday season. The massive Thomas fire had subjected them to multiple evacuations and weeks away from their homes. Now a new threat loomed: heavy rain. Above East Valley Road, evacuations were mandatory. Below it, they were voluntary. The mountainside above Montecito was bare and blackened. Beginning at 3:34 a.m., 4 extreme bursts of rain pounded the steep slopes. Within minutes, an ocean of mud was hurtling down the creeks toward the unsuspecting town. Boulders the size of cars rolled along like marbles. On San Isidro Creek, the raging flow of mud and boulders jumped the banks and broke a gas main. An explosion lit up the sky. It was the first sign for many that something was terribly wrong. This was a catastrophic debris flow, a rare event in the region. Under climate change, scientists say, debris flows will likely occur more often. Warming temperatures are causing longer and deeper droughts, larger and more frequent fires, and more intense rains. Entire neighborhoods in Montecito were wiped out on January 9th. 23 people died, and 470 structures were damaged or destroyed. The flow swept away homes, cars, utility poles, and oak woodlands. It engulfed Highway 101 on its way to the sea. The deadliest place to be that morning was the west bank of Montecito Creek, just below the bridge at East Valley Road. 11 people perished there as the flow raced through, demolishing everything in its path. It was not the first time this neighborhood had been hit. In early 1914, a torrential debris-laden flood destroyed portions of an historic Latino community known as Spanish Town. On the east bank of Montecito Creek last January 9th, Mark Karpeles was awakened by the early morning deluge.
I looked out the window from my bed and I noticed the sky was orange, and kind of shook my head and said, "What's going on?" It looked like Mars in the morning, orange sky and everything. It looks like some boulders had hit a gas line, and the gas line was leaking and started on fire and was going straight up in the air. And I could see 2 columns of flames coming straight up, and the room started to shake. And I'm shocked. What's going on? And you could hear a big rumbling sound right after that. And I'm thinking, okay, those are probably boulders going down the creek. Because when we get a lot of rain, when the creek starts to fill up, boulders do go down the creek. And it makes a loud noise. And all of a sudden, it got really, really loud, really quickly. And the ground was still shaking. And I saw a wall of mud, which was rocks on top, rolling around on the top. Trees in there, and just mud, liquefied mud, and it was just tumbling down, and it was coming really fast. And I said, "Oh my God!" And I couldn't believe it because it looked like 40 feet high at that point, and I thought I was dead. We still think about it every day, and sometimes I lie in bed and I realize how weird it is, and how lucky we were, and how unlucky just people a few feet from us were unlucky they were. This mudslide was really a matter of inches. If you were at a certain flood level, plain level, you were going to get hit, and if you were 1 inch above it, you were fine.
Farther down Montecito Creek, 6 more people died in the 300 block of Hot Springs Road. The night before, Lalo Barajas and his partner, Peter Freund, had packed their car and truck and were ready to leave at a moment's notice.
Peter had discussed that he had been here for quite a number of years and through a couple close calls with the 95 storm. And he said if it comes to it, we may have to leave. So he pretty much stayed, for the most part, awake the whole night and was monitoring the creek. So from the moment I got up, I saw Peter looking out the window towards the street. The whole skyline, that direction was aglow with like an orange glow from a fire that had happened. So as soon as I woke up from the bedroom, I could see him, and he called me over to look at what was going on outside. So I ran over to where he was at, looked out, was trying to make sense of everything because I just woke up and was I couldn't understand what was going on. And it was not a few minutes after that I could start to feel the whole house was rumbling. I could feel the boulders kind of independently moving underneath the house. And I just kind of started to freak out a little bit. I could hear the transformers in the street popping. I started to look towards the creek and I could see huge trees snapping down like twigs. So I said, let's get the hell out of here. And I ran towards the front door. My keys were always by the front door. So as I went to go reach the keys by the front door, the glass door opposite the front door burst open and water started rushing at me. So I ran back to where Peter was at. The bathroom was right around here, kind of where we're standing, almost right about here. And so we both jumped on the vanity and he said, whatever happens, just stay on high ground. And I said, okay. So I looking this direction again towards the street. We're looking out the window from the bathroom. And I see both our vehicles float past the window. At that moment, I knew something terrible was going to happen. And I just thought, this is my ending. I was already figuring this was it. And Peter just said, just stay calm and just stay on high ground. The water was going through the house. I took a look towards my left and I could see the house starting to lift. And then seconds after that, the whole house just lifted up and took us both out. So I don't know how it was. I didn't get killed from the house breaking apart. Somehow we both landed in the water and I was already in the flow. So I was already moving when Peter yelled at me and said, Lalo, grab onto some wood and don't let go. So I looked over my shoulder and that's the last time I saw Peter. And the whole time I could tell he was thinking, he was able to keep on thinking, but I was in like just survivor mode at that point. So that's what I did. I just went down and I saw a tree and I said, that's where I'm going. And I landed on it. I landed on it by its side. I barely grabbed the side of it. I remember hitting my head and feeling a little bit dizzy, but I hung on. And it took me a little bit to kind of get my bearings again. I pulled my body around to where the water was keeping me on the tree. And at that point, I started just trying to figure things out again. And I could see huge boulders and lumber, logs, everything going down the creek. And I just thought, oh no, I'm going to get snapped in half now.
In waist-high water and mud, Lalo stepped away from the tree and helped rescue a neighbor. But Peter did not survive.
I kept on having the impulse to want to go out and try and find Peter, but Andrew, my neighbor, he decided he would do that for me. So he went out trying to look and see, and it wasn't until weeks after when we were finally able to come back, he had showed me some markings on the side of his wall where there was handprints of someone trying to make it. But that side of the house was too low. There was nothing for him to stand on. So I know he tried probably, but he didn't make it, so that was it. Peter, that was one of his passions, his gardens. So there was just an amazing, amazing garden. I remember coming home and going through the gate and just feeling like whatever stress I had for the day would just like melt. And he was just a wonderful guy that would never hesitate to help somebody. People would call him up, Peter, I need this. And he would stop whatever he was doing and be just more than happy to go and help people. He was just a person that, was always there for everybody and couldn't do enough for anyone, He was just open, crazy, wonderful, always had the desire to live life, to do just any and everything.
Below Hot Springs on Olive Mill Road, Marco Farrell had put out sandbags to protect the house where he and his elderly parents lived.
I was coming down the street, and because of the fire glow, you could see all the way up the street, and without a flashlight. And by now, I can start to hear the actual rumble coming down Olive Mill. It was still around the corner.
I'm not going anywhere, but here comes the flash flood. Turn around, the flash flood's right there. The flash flood's right there. Get out of here, go. Oh my God, Mom. Close the door. Get ready to go out. Wake Dad up. It's up to the counter over there. There's nothing I could do. I'm sorry, you guys. Everyone stay calm. Yeah. Seems to be slowing down, everybody. I'm going to go and try to open that door over there. I'm going to try to open that door over there. Stay there! You guys stay there! No, I think I'm gonna keep that closed. No, it's pushing against the door. I don't want more to come in. It's as tall outside as it is inside. Everyone stay calm. This is literally as high as the kitchen counters. And God, I pray for everyone here.
I was making an assessment. I was listening. There were different noises. The street had a very mechanical, tank-like noise. Is the treads of the tank. There were cars that were being rolled down the street. There were huge boulders, and it was very mechanical. Is the best way I can describe it. Then the front of the house had that wet pancake batter sloshing around, and then huge impacts to the house with rocks and trees and boulders, and the whole house was shaking. A few minutes in, I said, "Dad, what time is it?" Because I knew we needed to survive until dawn. There was nobody coming to help us until the first rays of the sun started to break the darkness. And he said 4:07, I think. And I said, "God, that's 2 hours. We got to survive for 2 hours." And that was too scary of a thought. So I broke it down to one more second. We just got to survive one more second. If I can survive one more second, that means my folks are alive for one more second.
To the east, the flow on San Isidro Creek was tearing through the heart of Montecito. As it surged downhill, it carried away 9 buildings at La Casa de Maria, a spiritual retreat. The main chapel filled with mud. On Randall Road, 6 of 7 homes were destroyed. In all, more than 24 structures on Randall and East Valley Roads and Glen Oaks Drive were damaged, and 4 people were killed. The same area was hit by debris flows in 1926 and 1964. and by a debris-laden flood in 1969. Some of the same properties have been damaged more than once. Curtis Skene survived the flood of '69, 5 years after the Coyote Fire, at his childhood home on East Valley Lane.
In 1969, I was standing in the other end of that house actually with my father, and we saw this thing come through. We had sandbagged the house about 4 feet high, and when we saw this debris-laden flood actually come through, it was about 3 feet high. But it went in all the same areas and same places in '69 that it did on January 9th. The only difference was January 9th it was, obviously substantially higher. You can see the mark on the house over there, which I guess would be somewhere around 8 feet or so, maybe 10 feet. And as it came down this street, it marked the building across the street there, and at that, just at that white window, which made it sort of 12 or 15 feet on this street. When I was in bed, I realized, when I opened my eyes, I heard this huge rumbling. Some people have described it as a freight train, and I would say, yes, possibly you could describe it as that, provided you're standing 10 or 15 feet next to a railroad track, because that's how loud it was. It shakes your very being. I saw it was bright orange outside, and then I suddenly saw my car floating by my window, and I realized immediately what was going on, and that prompted me to just jump out of bed, land on my feet. As soon as I landed on my feet, that whole side of the house broke down and the mud came in, and I just kept one step ahead of it as I moved from the bedroom into the kitchen. People have said to me, you must have been very scared. I wasn't scared. I was at some state of consciousness that's above that. I was just too busy listening for what I should do to be guided. I think if you're too scared, you can possibly make mistakes. I didn't, fortunately. And my life was spared, and I found myself standing under that olive tree. So I had whatever those number of hours were, 4 or 5 hours, to really contemplate life. I realized that I didn't have anything for which I should feel sorry for myself. I recognized that I had a lot for which to be grateful, beginning with the fact that my life had been spared. And I just focused quite literally every minute for the next however number of hours it was on being grateful. And I said to myself, I'm going to make a list of things I'm grateful for. And I just started thinking about all those things and kept thinking about them that whole night. There was the night was very quiet. Once the event had passed, it was very, very quiet. It was only punctuated by the calls of someone that were crying. Someone was calling for help a quarter of a mile in that direction in Glen Oaks. I don't know who it was. But, I just prayed for that person.
The deadliest disaster ever to strike Santa Barbara County has brought neighbors together.
We greet each other with hugs now, complete strangers. And you're kind, and you let each other go at the stop sign, and it's a new place. And I get goosebumps now because that's what makes us emotional. That's what makes us want to stay, is the love of the community and people coming together. The mud didn't discriminate, rich or poor, tall or short, old or young. It took people from us. It took our friends, our neighbors, our family from us, from Montecito. And I think that it was a big wake-up call to a lot of people that it's the fabric of the community is what's really valuable.
Right now, most people are still in decompression. They're still trying to get through this. It's been a year, and it's still really tough. for a lot of folks, and a lot of folks can't come back. I mean, on my street alone, you know, some of the folks that were here on that morning, they just can't come back. It's too traumatic. But I'm very hopeful for Montecito, absolutely. I think there's no doubt that we will recover. There's only one path, and that's the path forward. We need to learn from what happened and go forward.